All right, we are recording.
All right, fantastic. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Hadd. I'm the Vice Chair of the board, and I will be calling the meeting of the Land Use Review Board today, Monday, November 24th, to order in the absence of our Chair, Janet Hurley. Alex Weinhagen has noted that he is running late and he will join us shortly, but perhaps the other board members could introduce themselves briefly. Brooke?
Brooke Dingledine, board member present.
Kirsten?
Kirsten Sultan, board member.
Any agenda updates? Hearing none. Any opportunity for public comment? I do not see any public yet online, and I'm seeing a shaking head at 10 Baldwin. We can come back to that as needed. Consent agenda, review and approve the minutes for November 3rd, 10th, and 13th meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Seeing nodding heads. Somebody like to, Brooke?
I would move that we approve November 3rd, 10th, and 13th meeting minutes with the corrections that were circulated, I believe, by Sarah Hadd. I've forgotten which date they were for, but we received them by email, and I was fine with those. And then the other corrections that might be agreed to by the board.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, or other corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Kirsten?
Apology, maybe I misunderstood. Should we identify the date of the specific minutes for which Sarah had circulated some corrections?
November 3rd, 2025.
So I'd like to, with that clarification, can I call the
Yes.
vote again? All those in
Yes.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
All
you.
right, 3 ayes.
Thanks, Maddie.
I think we have it. Thank you. All right, operations, budget, and legislative updates. Rachel, do you have anything for us?
I don't have any updates to share.
All right, thank you. Rebecca, do you have any updates for us?
I do not.
All right, fantastic. We will move on. We're running early on, I think it was 1:30, but update on Northwest Regional Planning Commission pre-application. Kirsten, is that something you're prepared to give us an update on?
Just a very cursory mention that today was the extended deadline for submittal of comments, and a number have been received and are under review. And I will be, compiling and presenting a draft reply for the board to consider at upcoming meetings. And the reply is due December 12th. So it's upon us to, to get this review completed. And I'm just still in the process of going through it and developing a draft for the board to consider.
All right, well, thank you. I'll move on if there aren't any questions for Kirsten. Seeing none, I'll move on to agenda item G, studies and reports. Appeals Day report. Brooke.
Well, we have draft number 5 that Maddie was great to put on the web this morning, along with, the agenda had been up before, but she did add the draft number 5, which has additional changes from our last discussion on Thursday. And I'm happy to proceed, answer questions, go over sections, whatever you all would like me to do.
Kirsten, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to start going through it and we can hold our comments for as we get to certain sections? I do have a few comments myself, but
Yeah, I would like to go through, I had some tweaks that were mentioned, but I'm not sure that Brooke found time to include all of them. So if that is the case, as I think is the case, then I'd be happy to go through those. I hate to kind of do this sort of like minor wordsmithing, and actually I think based on the board's last conversation around this, I think we had agreed that this sort of minor wordsmithing could occur between the last board's discussion and the final report getting submitted. So I think unnecessary, like I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. I think the more substantive ones we had already discussed, and I have, confidence that Brooke will be able to get those wordsmithing tweaks to the finish line as a component of the final report. So, yeah, I guess I
and in
would.
fact,
Go ahead.
let me just respond quickly, Kirsten. All of the changes that you detailed, I have now made, and I can show them to you, but that's draft 6 now.
Okay, yeah,
That
I
I'm
think
working on.
unnecessary. I'm comfortable with you proceeding. And I think that was the board's last discussion too.
and I
Yeah.
have a few
Go ahead.
edits on the most recent edits. I can hold those and submit them to, again, I don't think they're substantive. I do have one that I think might be worthy of discussion, but Alex, thank you for joining. We are on appeals and we're just trying to figure out how we want to go through today. So please weigh in if you want to go have Brooke start with overview, or if you want to jump to specifics at this point.
I am happy to jump to specifics.
Brooke, are you comfortable with that?
Sure, absolutely. What would be most helpful? A clean copy, the comparison copy that I put, the messy copy, in other words, the red line strikeout, or you tell me what would be easiest, Alex?
Oh, yeah, I'm not the one you need to satisfy because I'm pretty happy with what I've seen thus far. So maybe I'll take my lead from Sarah. If she has a substantive item to discuss, which version would be easiest to have that discussion with.
I think the red line one that you circulated that shows the changes since the last version might be a useful one to look at, and I don't have any comments until around page 37.
Okay. All right. Let me put this one aside. Bear with me just a minute. Let me make sure I get the right one up. Can you see the red line on the November, on the date?
Yes.
Okay, great. And all right, Alex, you want me to just start walking through it, or do you want to tell me to speed ahead to something in particular?
You can speed right ahead to Sarah's substantive comment, which I think she said was page 37. Like I said, I don't have comments on this. I'm happy to move forward with it. So I'm interested to hear the conversation from others.
As Brooke's forwarding ahead, I can sort of walk into what it is. I think, Brooke, thank you. You did a good job there are the two budgetary items in terms of with an attorney, without an attorney, and just one additional staff person. I think the way that we were trying to rephrase it is that we were going to revisit a couple of years from now as we start to implement, not knowing what all of the tier one appeals might be on an attorney. And so I think it was really within that context of wrapping things up and sort of stating where we're at is, I think we need to be a little bit more explicit about the phasing will allow for consideration as to if an attorney is needed, specifically in a couple years' time. Because I didn't get that from the edits that were provided. It just said, we don't know if we need another attorney or not. And I think we're going to be a little bit more explicit with that and say, we need to revisit this in 2 years' time.
Right. For me, it's really hard to look at the red line strikeout version to figure out where exactly. So I would prefer to stop sharing this one and go to one that I can actually make changes to as you're discussing it. So hang on
That
a
sounds
minute.
good. Brooke, go ahead, get the clean one up.
Because, I'm at the point where, yeah, you can tell me this stuff, but it's like I'm kind of out of gas here. And if you want to tell me language and I will type, my mind is a little bit frozen up at this point. So let's see. Let me share this one. Looks about. Am I in the right place? Let's see.
It was around where the chart was, comparing the two, and then the conclusion afterwards.
Okay, I think that's earlier on. Okay.
Yep, there's a conclusion right after.
Cost estimates. Okay, gotcha.
I think it's
Do you want to work on, we could work offline on this after the meeting to shape it up to, I know exactly what you're saying. I need some help putting it into the right words. Unless you want to do it now. I mean, I'm happy to. I'm just. No, it looks like the whole conclusion really needs to be rewritten.
Was it though, Sarah, or were you simply suggesting that in the cost estimates under number 2, the wording that says, while it is unknown whether an addition of another lawyer is necessitated, did you just want to change that phrase?
Well, I think that could be wrapped up in the conclusion. We could just leave that, and it's almost like the conclusion. I don't think it needs to be rewritten. I just think that maybe an additional sentence in the conclusion stating that in order to address the unknowns with scenario 2 above, we propose revisiting our needs within 2 years. Kirsten, you have your hand up. Maybe you can help with some of the language.
I'm happy to help finalize some language. Now we're offline, but I just want to point out something that I was noticing previously. And since we're doing a little bit more fine tuning, I'll mention, I do think it's not crystal clear as to the scope with respect to the wording municipal tier 1A and tier 1B housing appeals. One could interpret that to mean only housing, including in tier 1A. And I know that's not the intent here. And setting aside that I don't myself agree with this phase 2 approach to the board potentially taking on appeals, I do want to make sure that this is clearly conveying
Just delete the word
intent.
housing.
I think it could mean just including, it could be itemized, including A, all tier 1A, and B, tier 1B housing only, something like that. Like, just so it's clearly not limited to just housing in tier 1A, since that is what the board has landed on.
About all appeals. And tier 1B housing appeals.
Could put all appeals,
in
tier 1A in
parentheses.
brackets, all appears, and tier 1B housing only in brackets, something like that.
Something like that. And I'll do a search and replace everywhere it is because it's in a lot of places.
Well, yeah, I don't know if anyone else thought that it was a little bit unclear with respect to this, but I think that's more clear, Brooke.
Look, I didn't find that confusing anywhere else in the document, so I don't think you need to do a global search and replace anytime you see tier 1A and 1B, but that I think just doing it here makes it, as clear as it needs to be in a conclusion statement.
Agreed.
Okay. And I am tracking the changes, I think. Yes, okay.
All right,
I don't know why
so that
that
was
got
my-
turned off.
The only area that I had, Alex, did you have any other specific areas that you wanted to?
Oh.
Okay.
I will note in this conclusion paragraph that Brooke's editing right now, you've got just a typo where it says regardless period. Both scenarios emphasize the need for, so that's a comma instead of a period. But other than that, I honestly, Brooke, I think you did an excellent job capturing all the changes we talked about and some more for clarity. And I don't have suggestions for further revisions. I was just interested to hear any items that Sarah or Kirsten had.
Kirsten, do you have anything that you'd like to go over?
No, not beyond what I've already identified. And thank you to Brooke for all the hard work.
I want to point something out to you guys because, we've been bouncing around on those days to disposition. And I did a bunch of research this weekend, thanks to Annette Smith, who in her first response to the appeals report, she had put a link in there to the Public Utility Commission, a report where they established kind of the same standards that we're talking about in terms of how long it takes to get through a number of different kinds of cases, because they have a whole laundry list of different kinds of litigation, appeals, whatever. I'm not sure which level, often it's just the initial level as well as the appeal. So I went through there and I looked at, we were talking about the 180-day shot clock for telecom towers. And they also had higher numbers for Section 248, which are renewable energy projects. And I really thought about that and used my own experience knowing what that was like, and then what we are trying to create here to make some judgments about days to disposition that pushes the envelope for Alex, but is also realistic in terms of the upper end. And I won't bore you with all of the information, but PUC has a lot of cases. They process thousands of applications per year, and they have many hearing officers, pushing, I think, 20 at this point. So they have a lot of data, and I think that this was a really good guide to look at to come up with something that I feel very confident is, like I say, it's pushing the envelope, but we are proposing a model that is to expedite appeals, plain and simple. So I have put in, I don't know, about 4 hours of thought into these numbers. I can answer your questions about them, but I really feel like these are the appropriate low end and high end based on what I see at the PUC, which, by the way, the upper end is 547 days for their complex permitting. But I I think that these are good guides and they are vastly shorter than the court. Which is, we're about a half, maybe at most 2/3 on one or two of the disposition goals. I can pull up the other one if you want to see the court numbers. So we're at 120 up to 180, 210, 240, 270, all depending on what kind of case it is. And that range is not just a range of numbers. What I got from the PUC is they have simple, average, and complex cases. So they actually had 3 different standards on most of their disposition guidelines. And that is, in essence, what this range encompasses. And so what I want to jump to is, I did leave in the appendices and change them a little bit. I kept the appeals board models. This is the Act 251. And this one is more specific, okay? So what you were looking at in the other chart was Act 250 jurisdictional opinions. All of them. I just gave a range of 120 to 180. And the expectation is for probably the majority of them that are simple or average, and I took out that word simple. And I think if in terms of categories, we're going to have the normal category and then the complex category. And the normal category is going to be simple and average. And that's the 120 to 150. In that other chart, again, they were combined because we were not indicating anything about complex. But this is where I really put in the thought process compared with the kinds of cases and the time frames at the PUC. Then we have Act 250 permit decisions, which tend to go a little bit longer because JOs tend to be simpler. And for the complex ones, we have an outlier of 270. That's where you have a 500 number at the PUC for a complex 248 case. Then when we look at the municipal appeals board model, we have the de novos in this range and the on the record. And this footnote indicates, it's down a little ways, but it indicates when the days to disposition begins. And we talked about this the other day, how de novo is based on when the notice of appeal is filed. On the record is when that transcript is produced. Keep in mind, there is a rule that says if it's a hardship, the transcript, other things can be used. That is in the rules. It's not an automatic thing, but that should also address, everybody sitting around waiting months for a transcript to show up, which seems pretty wasteful of people's time and energy. So that's where the numbers came from. Again, these are the more complex ones, so we gave them a little extra time. On the record, a little bit longer than de novo we're giving them a bigger range because de novos could come in, it could be pretty straightforward evidence, and we could get through it very quickly. On the other hand, it might be more average or complex. So there is a method to my madness, is what I'm trying to explain.
I see the method, Brooke, and I appreciate the madness. So thank you for the explanation. And that's helpful. Thank you.
Is there anything else that board members would like Brooke to review on the draft at this point? Brooke, is there anything else that you would like to specifically go over with us?
Let's see. I tried to beef up the housing appeals section. And we do have a mention in there with these proposals and recommendations that discuss that the examination and further study perhaps of zoning to, I'm forgetting what the name of it is, Sarah, you gotta remind me, code zoning or a very simplified zoning. Let me go to that section. It's 21.
And I just sent you, I had some other cleanups, just wordsmithing, that I just sent you my comments
Okay.
and would encourage other board members to send those too. I think it was on page 25. Maybe.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I just saw it come in. So this is the proposals included limited zoning review of housing projects in tier 1 growth areas to allow affordable housing projects in tier 1 areas to bypass design review and directly obtain a building permit for expeditious municipal approval. This could eliminate needless appeals for developments that are in conformance with town plans served by sewer and water and meeting zoning requirements for height, setback, and other easily verifiable criteria. Reason why I bring this up is 3 of our stakeholders and VNRC have echoed this. They wanted to see the board consider studying this issue further. And this was an issue that came up very early on in the appeals study. I think it was talked about like the first or second time when we didn't actually, we weren't recording the meetings. And it sort of fell by the wayside because I think people had the idea that it was too complicated or hard to implement and it would be such a long process and it was outside the scope of the study. But you know, we have had our housing folks speak up. They felt like the report, they appreciated all the work that was in it, but they felt like it was very dominated and sounded like it was the debate of the lawyers. And they really wanted their voices to be heard on 2 issues. One of them was, we want you to take all zoning or all housing at least. And the other is this idea of further study to simplify tier 1 zoning, to code zoning or whatever models that are out there. So my question is, do you want me to do anything other than maybe make sure that I put something in here that says we have had this issue raised again in response to the report? Do you want me to identify it further? Do you want me to do anything with it?
So I see Kirsten has her hand up, but Brooke, I'll just clarify before I recognize Kirsten. One of the things that I sent you was a typo fix, where I think instead of design review, you mean development review. So Kirsten.
So Brooke, in the comments received, is there reference to form-based code? Like,
Yep.
is that what is meant by that this issue was raised? Like, is that
Yes.
Form-based code, I'll just say, is something different. You can do this model with or without form-based code.
Okay.
I'm fine with reporting that this concern was raised during the course of this work, but I don't think we would be making a recommendation concerning how zoning review occurs as part of this appeals study, but maybe others see it differently.
So I had a concern with calling it, and I didn't note this in my notes that I sent you, Brooke, but perhaps to have a substantive conversation with the board, and calling this a legislative or policy change, because I think that's advocating for a legislative fix to require this as opposed to the way it's up to a municipality right now as to how they process, these applications. So I would sort of, to that point, agree with Kirsten, is perhaps we can just change the way that the heading on
The
that.
heading,
Make it
yeah,
that
I
this
agree.
was brought up, but
The
we're
he-
not proposing that the legislature address this globally. Alex, how
Well,
do you?
Yeah, and I mean, actually, that section is more of a report of the conversations and the proposals. And if I made it sound like it was our proposals, that's probably incorrect. I should clarify that.
That was my understanding. I'm not sure why we think this is a proposal coming out of this report. I think this was just a recitation of some options that the stakeholder group discussed. So sorry, Brooke, I'm looking at the clean version on my own computer. Which section are we in that has this language we're talking about?
It's housing appeals, which is Roman numeral 8B3. Legislative and policy changes.
Got it. I'm just scanning it real quick with regard to the headers that Kirsten and Sarah were recommending be changed.
Yeah, I mean, could call it legislative and policy item or items. I don't know.
Or
Yeah, I was
additional
mostly responding to
considerations or,
Brooks. Oh, say again?
or additional considerations or something of that nature.
Yeah, Alex, I didn't
And I'll go-
interpret that as written, it was saying that, but I was mostly responding to Brooks' inquiry. But I think
Yeah,
the heading could
and
be a
I'll
little
go-
better.
I'll go back to the letters and get better language. I was sort of dictating into the microphone and God only knows what came out.
I think it's
So I
I
was
think
a
it's
little
fine, Brooke. I
confused.
wouldn't sweat it if Kirsten and Sarah would like the header number 3 to change to from legislative and policy changes to other ideas or something like that. That's fine with me. And if it addresses their concern, just do that. And then you don't have to update the language or go back and refer to the letters. But honestly, when this was discussed at the stakeholder meeting, at least the one I was at, it was being discussed as a legislative change. I think VNRC specifically was saying the legislature could compel municipalities to only be able to issue simple zoning permits within tier 1A and B areas as a way to simplify the review and lessen the number of appeals. And I was at that meeting saying that's a terrible idea. I don't like that. That preempts an ability of a municipality to have a robust review, even in a place where we want to see housing. And some municipalities, that's necessary to make sure the right design guidelines are followed. So I didn't agree with the proposal, but that doesn't matter. You're just listing it because it was brought up, and that's fine. So I don't think this section, anyone's going to construe this as a section where the board is making a recommendation. I think this is just a recitation of proposals that came up during the stakeholder discussion.
So what do you guys want to call it? Other ideas?
Sure.
Yep.
All right, so I think we can send Brooke our wordsmithing on the rest. Brooke, I'm going to give you one final bite at this, but just if there's anybody else other than board members that had any questions or comments for Brooke. I see that we've been joined by Annette, and I wasn't sure if Annette, you had anything for us.
I think it's an excellent report. As a member of the stakeholder process, I would say that it captures the discussions very well, and you all have done a very good job in providing the report. So congratulations for bringing it home.
Thank you, Annette. I appreciate very much all of your input. You have been just terrific in terms of the information that you have shared and the education that you have provided. So appreciate all of your time and efforts.
All right, Maddie, do we have anybody joining us at 10 Baldwin? Or are we
No,
still? Just you. All right. Brooke, is there anything else that you want to point out before we consider action on this?
I'm good, unless somebody has a question. I did share the latest version with Thomas Weiss. I sent it to him by email because he had a lot of changes and corrections, and I went through them very diligently. Didn't make all of them, but he was very helpful and really spent a lot of time on it as well. So he's not with us today, but I do want to assure the board that I did respond and get back to him for his issues.
Thank you. And if somebody would like to consider making a motion, I think we can probably act on something today and have all the final wordsmithing cleaned up offline.
I'll make a motion that we finalize the appeals report per the discussion today and any minor wordsmithing that may need to happen, and authorize staff to transmit it once it's cleaned up.
I'll second.
Fantastic. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Fantastic, and congratulations, Brooke. Job well done.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the support and help. The board has been terrific. It's been a long haul. So now get ready to throw new jobs at me.
Oh, be careful. You'll get the next regional plan that comes in.
I'll be Tonto on that one. I'll be sidekick, please. Not sure I'm ready to jump in the deep end, but I will try.
All right, we hear you. All right, if nothing else, I'll take a motion for per item H. I will note that we're an hour ahead of schedule.
Well, I'll make that motion, Sarah.
Okay,
Yes, so
we got a motion.
I will move that we enter into executive session to have discussion about enforcement and appeals and attorney-client communication on those and other matters. And acknowledge that the premature disclosure of this sorts of information would substantially disadvantage the board.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. Any questions, comments, corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
We have 4 ayes, and we'll see you back here in a little bit. Thank you. All right, Maddie, we're back. Alex, one more minute. All right, we are back on the record. I think we have a couple motions. Kirsten.
I would like to make a motion concerning enforcement docket, the Land Use Review Board's enforcement docket 2023_95 to authorize enforcement to transmit a proposed assurance of discontinuance, impose a $3,000 civil penalty, and seek reimbursement of $704.62 for enforcement costs incurred.
Thank you.
Second.
Alex, second. Questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
All right, we have 4 ayes. That's unanimous. Thank you. Brooke.
I would like to make a motion in enforcement case number 2025_105. And I would like to move to authorize enforcement to transmit a notice of alleged violation with appropriate compliance directives.
Second.
Alex, second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
4 ayes. That's unanimous. I'll take one last motion, please.
To adjourn, moved.
Second.
All right, Brooke and then Kirsten, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, you all, and we'll see you in Chittenden County for our December 1st meeting at CCRPC Winooski. So just as a reminder, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy Turkey Day. Hey, Maddie.